Picture this scenario. You're sitting at your kitchen table at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, and you're about to pay your credit card bill for the third time this month. Not because you're in financial trouble, not because you forgot to pay it, but because you read somewhere online that making multiple payments per month will boost your credit utilization ratio, which might bump your score up by 5 or 10 points. You've become obsessed with a 3-digit number that's supposed to represent your financial trustworthiness. You check it every week, sometimes every day. You feel a little thrill when it goes up and genuine anxiety when it drops, even if it's just a few points. And here's the thing that nobody's telling you. That obsession, that constant optimization, that quest for the perfect 850 credit score is costing you something far more valuable than money. It's costing you your freedom. My name is Carla, and I've spent years obsessing over the hidden mechanisms that dictate our financial decisions and how we've been programmed to participate in games that are rigged from the start. If your credit score feels like it has veto power over your life choices, or if you're burned out from constantly tweaking every financial decision to protect some 3-digit number, make sure to smash that subscribe button and drop a thumbs up on this video, because what we're diving into today is the invisible price tag attached to every choice you make when you prioritize your credit score over your actual financial well-being. Let's start with something that's going to sound controversial, but stick with me. Your credit score is not a measure of how good you are with money. It's a measure of how profitable you are to lenders. Think about that for a second. The entire credit scoring system was designed by banks for banks to help them determine who they can lend money to and still make a profit. It wasn't designed to measure your wealth. It wasn't designed to measure your financial intelligence. It wasn't designed to measure whether you're making smart financial decisions. It was designed to measure one thing and one thing only. Are you a reliable customer who will consistently pay interest to creditors? Here's what really blows my mind about this whole system. You can have a perfect credit score while drowning in debt. You can have an 820 score while living paycheck to paycheck. You can be one missed paycheck away from financial disaster and still be considered excellent according to the credit scoring models. Because the system doesn't care if you're wealthy, it cares if you're profitable. In fact, the most profitable customers aren't the ones who pay everything off immediately. They're the ones who carry balances, pay on time, but generate interest month after month. The system rewards behavior that keeps you in the game, not behavior that gets you out of it. Now, you might be thinking that sounds cynical, but it doesn't change the fact that I need a good credit score to function in modern society. And you're right, you absolutely need a decent credit score. But here's where people get it completely backwards. There's a massive difference between having a good credit score and chasing a perfect credit score. And that difference is where your freedom disappears. Let's talk about what actually happens when you have different credit score ranges, because this is crucial to understanding the trap. According to data from multiple lenders, once you hit about 740 to 760, you've essentially maxed out the benefits. You qualify for the best interest rates on mortgages, you get approved for the best credit cards, landlords don't blink at your application. The difference between a 760 and an 850 in terms of actual financial opportunities is essentially zero. But the mental energy, the time, the strategic maneuvering required to push from 760 to 850, that's enormous, and it comes with real costs that nobody talks about. Here's what I mean. Let's say you've got a credit score of 770. That's excellent. You're in the top tier for everything that matters. But you want to get it higher because you've been sold this idea that 800 plus is some kind of achievement worth bragging about. So what do? You start playing the credit score optimization game. You keep credit cards open that you don't use just because closing them would decrease your average account age. You apply for new credit cards strategically, timing your applications to minimize the impact of hard inquiries. You pay your credit card bill multiple times a month to keep your utilization below 10%, even though keeping it below 30% is perfectly fine. You avoid making large purchases on your cards, even when it would be convenient, because you're worried about a temporary spike in utilization. Each of these behaviors feels harmless in isolation, but let's add up the real cost. That credit card you're keeping open to preserve your account age, it has a $95 annual fee. You're paying $95 a year for a card you don't use just to maintain a number that's already excellent. That's not financial intelligence. That's paying rent to a system that doesn't benefit you. The multiple credit card payments you're making each month to optimize your utilization ratio, each one takes time. You're logging in, transferring money, keeping track of payment dates. Let's say it takes 15 minutes total per week. That's 52 hours per year you're spending managing credit card payments for a potential 5 to 10 point bump in a score that's already excellent. What's the hourly rate on your actual job? Now calculate what you just paid in opportunity cost. The mental bandwidth consumed by constantly monitoring, optimizing, and stressing about your credit score is even more insidious. Every financial decision gets filtered through this lens. Should I buy this on my credit card or use my debit card? Well, I need to keep my utilization low, but I also need to show activity on the account. Should I pay off my car loan early? Well, that would save me interest, but it might hurt my credit mix. Should I dispute this error on my credit report? Well, what if it makes my score drop temporarily? This is decision fatigue on steroids. You're burning cognitive resources on micro-optimizations that don't actually improve your financial position. And here's the truly messed up part. All of that mental energy could be directed toward things that would actually build wealth. The hour you spend researching how to maximize your credit score could be spent learning about index fund investing, or negotiating a raise at work, or starting a side hustle. The anxiety you feel about whether paying off debt early will hurt your credit mix could be redirected towards actually paying off debt and freeing up cash flow. Let me tell you about someone I know. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah had a 780 credit score, excellent by any measure, but she wanted to hit 800 because she'd convinced herself that was the threshold for being truly financially responsible. So she implemented every credit score hack she could find online. She opened 3 new credit cards in 6 months to improve her credit mix. She set up automatic payments on cards she never used just to keep them active. She paid her main credit card weekly to keep utilization at 5%. She even took out a small personal loan she didn't need just to add an installment loan to her credit profile. After 9 months of this madness, Sarah's credit score hit 805. She felt accomplished. She'd won the game. But here's what she didn't calculate. The 3 new credit cards she opened, 2 had annual fees totaling $190. The small personal loan she took out to improve her credit mix cost her $180 in interest over the year. The mental stress and time spent managing all these accounts, she estimates about 3 hours per month, which is 36 hours over the year. If we value her time at her hourly rate of $35, that's $1,260 in opportunity cost. Total cost to increase her already excellent credit score by 25 points, $1,630. Return on investment? Absolutely nothing. Those 25 points didn't qualify her for anything she wasn't already qualified for. They didn't get her better interest rates. They didn't open any doors that were previously closed. She paid $1,630 for bragging rights to a number that only she cared about. And here's where it gets even worse. Because Sarah was so focused on optimizing her credit score, she didn't notice that she was making terrible decisions with her actual money. She was carrying a $3,000 balance on one of her credit cards at 18% interest because she was afraid that paying it off in full would eliminate the account activity that was helping her score. She calculated that she was paying about $540 per year in interest on that strategic balance. She had passed on a high-yield savings account that would have earned her an extra $200 per year because opening a new bank account would generate a hard inquiry that might ding her score by a few points. Sarah had optimized for the wrong metric. She won at credit score and lost at actual financial health. And this is the fundamental trap that millions of people fall into. They've been convinced that the credit score is the scorecard for financial success when it's actually just one very specific tool that measures one very specific thing: your ability to borrow money and pay it back on a schedule that's profitable for lenders. Now let's talk about the biggest lie that the credit industry has successfully sold to consumers: the idea that you need to carry debt to build credit. This is perhaps the most financially destructive myth in modern personal finance, and it's everywhere. You'll hear people say things like, "I keep a small balance on my credit card to build my credit history," or "I took out a credit builder loan because I need to establish credit." The credit scoring algorithm doesn't care if you carry a balance. It cares if you make payments on time. You can pay your credit card in full every single month, pay $0 in interest, and build the exact same credit history as someone who carries a balance and pays hundreds or thousands in interest annually. But the myth persists because it's incredibly profitable. Credit card companies made $120 billion in interest and fees in a recent year. A significant portion of that came from people who genuinely believe they need to carry a balance to maintain good credit. They're literally paying money for something they could get for free. This is like paying for air. Here's what actually builds credit: making on-time payments, using credit responsibly, having a mix of credit types over time, not manufactured all at once, maintaining accounts in good standing. None of these things require you to pay interest. None of these things require you to stay in debt. But the credit industry has done an amazing job of conflating using credit with being in debt. They're not the same thing. Let me tell you what financial freedom actually looks like, and it has nothing to do with an 850 credit score. Financial freedom is waking up in the morning and not checking your bank account before deciding if you can afford coffee. It's getting an unexpected car repair bill and feeling annoyed instead of panicked. It's having the option to quit a job you hate because you have enough savings to survive while you find something better. It's making decisions based on what's best for your life instead of what's best for your credit score. And here's the paradox that nobody talks about. The fastest way to achieve financial freedom is often to stop caring so much about your credit score. Not to ignore it completely, but to stop optimizing for it. Because when you stop playing the credit score game and start playing the actual wealth building game, something magical happens. Your credit score takes care of itself. Think about what actually matters for building wealth: spending less than you earn, investing the difference consistently, building an emergency fund so you don't have to go into debt when life happens, increasing your income through career development or side projects, avoiding consumer debt that charges high interest. None of these wealth-building behaviors require you to optimize your credit score. In fact, many of them are completely independent of your credit score. But here's what's really interesting. If you do these wealth-building behaviors consistently, your credit score will naturally rise to a good level without you even trying. Because the fundamentals that build wealth, paying bills on time, not overextending yourself financially, being responsible with borrowed money, these are the same fundamentals that the credit scoring algorithm rewards. The difference is that when you focus on wealth building, the credit score is a side effect instead of the goal, and that shift in perspective changes everything. Let me give you a real-world example of what this looks like. Let's compare two people. Person A is obsessed with credit score optimization. Person B focuses on wealth building and treats credit score as a useful tool but not a goal. Person A has a credit score of 820. They've achieved this through strategic credit card churning, maintaining multiple accounts they don't really need, and keeping a small balance on one card because they think it helps their score. They have $25,000 in total debt, mostly spread across credit cards and a car loan. Their net worth is negative $10,000 after accounting for assets. They feel successful because their credit score is elite. Person B has a credit score of 750. They got there by simply paying their bills on time and using one or two credit cards responsibly. They have zero debt because they paid everything off aggressively over the past 3 years. They have $50,000 in investments and an emergency fund that could cover 6 months of expenses. Their net worth is $75,000. Their credit score is lower than person A, but they're infinitely more financially secure. Now here's the question. If both of these people apply for a mortgage, who do you think is actually in a better position? Person A might get approved for a slightly larger loan amount because of that higher credit score, but person B has the down payment saved, has no other debt competing for their income, and could weather a financial storm without losing the house. Person B's lower credit score doesn't matter because they've built actual financial stability instead of just optimizing a number. This is what I mean when I talk about the freedom cost of chasing a perfect credit score. Person A is a slave to their credit score. Every financial decision is filtered through how it affects that number. Person B is free. They make decisions based on what actually improves their financial position, and the credit score follows naturally. Here's another cost that nobody talks about: the opportunity cost of being conservative with financial decisions because you're worried about your credit score. Let's say you're considering paying off your car loan early. You've got $8,000 left on the loan at 5% interest. You have the cash to pay it off in full. From a pure financial perspective, paying it off saves you interest and frees up monthly cash flow. It's almost always the right move. But then you hesitate because you've heard that paying off your only installment loan will hurt your credit mix and might drop your score by 10 or 20 points. So you keep the loan, you keep making payments, you keep paying interest, all to protect a credit score that didn't need protecting. That $500 you paid to protect a number that didn't need protecting. That $500 could have been invested. At a 7% return over 20 years, that $500 would have grown to $1,935. You didn't just lose $500, you lost the future value of that money. And for what? To avoid a temporary dip in a credit score that would have recovered within months anyway. This type of decision happens all the time when people are credit score obsessed. They make financially suboptimal choices to protect or improve a metric that doesn't actually correlate with wealth. And the costs compound over time in ways that are almost impossible to calculate, but are absolutely real. Now let's talk about the psychological trap of credit score addiction, because that's really what it is for a lot of people, an addiction. There are people who check their credit score multiple times per day. There are entire online communities dedicated to credit score optimization strategies. There are people who feel genuine emotional distress when their score drops by 5 points, even when that drop is completely meaningless. This isn't healthy. This is anxiety being monetized. Because here's what the credit monitoring companies figured out. If they can make you anxious about your credit score, they can sell you products and services to manage that anxiety. Credit monitoring subscriptions at $25 per month, credit repair services that promise to boost your score, credit builder loans that you don't actually need, educational courses on credit optimization. These companies have created a problem, credit score anxiety, and then sold you the solution to the problem they created. And people are paying hundreds or thousands of dollars per year for these services, when the reality is that most people don't need any of it. The advice for managing your credit score can be summed up in about 3 sentences. Pay your bills on time, don't max out your credit cards, check your credit report once a year for errors. That's it. That's the whole game for 95% of people. Everything beyond that is optimization theater that benefits the financial industry more than it benefits you. But we've been conditioned to believe that credit score management is complex and requires constant vigilance and professional help. It doesn't. The system wants you to think it's complicated because complicated systems create anxiety, and anxiety creates customers for solutions. But the truth is brutally simple. If you pay your bills on time and don't overextend yourself, your credit score will take care of itself. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to calculate the freedom cost you're paying for your credit score obsession. Add up the annual fees on credit cards you keep open but don't really use. Calculate the time you spend each month monitoring and optimizing your credit score and multiply it by your hourly rate. Consider the financial decisions you've made or avoided because of credit score concerns and estimate the cost of those decisions. Think about the mental energy you've spent worrying about your credit score and what else you could have done with that cognitive bandwidth. For most people, the total cost is shocking. It's easily thousands of dollars per year when you account for both direct costs and opportunity costs. And what are you getting for that investment? Probably nothing, because once your score is above 740, you've already unlocked everything that matters. Everything beyond that is just expensive peacocking. Here's my proposal for a saner approach to credit scores. Set a target of 740. That's it. Once you hit 740, stop trying to improve it. Just maintain it by doing the basics. Pay your bills on time, use credit responsibly, and check your credit report once a year for errors. Redirect all the energy and money you were spending on credit score optimization toward things that actually build wealth, maxing out retirement accounts, building an emergency fund, paying off high-interest debt, investing in skills that increase your income. Make financial decisions based on what's best for your overall financial health, not what's best for your credit score. If paying off a loan early is the right financial move, do it. Don't worry about the temporary impact on your credit score. Stop paying for credit monitoring services unless you've been a victim of identity theft. You can check your credit report for free once a year from each bureau. That's enough for most people. Stop playing credit card churning games unless you genuinely enjoy it as a hobby and understand the risks. The rewards are often not worth the complexity and potential downsides. Most importantly, recognize that your credit score is a tool, not a scorecard. It's useful for specific purposes, like getting loans at good rates, but it's not a measure of your financial success or personal worth. The wealthy understand this instinctively. They don't obsess over their credit scores because they don't need to. They have enough wealth that they don't need to borrow money for most things, and when they do need to borrow, their assets speak louder than any credit score. The truly financially independent often have credit scores in the 700s, not because they're trying to optimize, but because they simply pay their bills and don't get into trouble. Meanwhile, people living paycheck to paycheck often have 800-plus credit scores because they've optimized every aspect of their borrowing. They're amazing at managing debt, but managing debt really well is not the same as building wealth. Don't confuse being good at the credit score game with being good at money. They're not the same thing. In fact, they're often opposite. The credit score game rewards you for being a profitable long-term customer of the lending industry. The wealth building game rewards you for minimizing the role that the lending industry plays in your life. You can't win both games simultaneously. You have to choose. Do you want to have a perfect credit score, or do you want to build actual financial freedom? For most people, the answer should be obvious, but we've been so thoroughly conditioned to believe that credit score equals financial success that we keep choosing the wrong game. I want to leave you with one final thought. The stress, the time, the money, the mental energy you're spending on credit score optimization, what could you do with those resources if you redirected them towards something that actually matters to you? Maybe you could finally start that business you've been dreaming about. Maybe you could spend more time with your family instead of managing multiple credit card accounts. Maybe you could invest in your education or your health or your relationships. Maybe you could just breathe a little easier knowing that you're making decisions based on what's actually best for your life instead of what some algorithm thinks about you. That's what freedom looks like, and it's worth infinitely more than a perfect credit score. If this video helped you see the credit score game for what it really is, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges the financial conventional wisdom that's keeping you stuck. The game is rigged, but once you know the rules, you can choose to stop playing.